Hello everybody, welcome back to the Petko channel, and welcome here if it's your first time watching. This is one of two videos that's not related to any of the channel lore, because Henry Danger the movie has finally dropped on Paramount Plus. And I wanted to do a breakdown of all the Easter eggs, hidden details, and references to the original series that were littered all throughout this movie. And also shout out to the Henry Danger wiki, they picked up on some things that I might not have been able to. One more thing before we jump in, please like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. I'd like to reach 500 before the end of the year, and also spoilers for every single piece of media that exists within the Dangerverse. You have been warned. This movie was originally announced when the show was in its third season, all the way back in 2017, 8 years ago. Back in January of 2022, it was said that Jace had a deal to produce content for Viacom CBS platforms, including producing the Henry Danger movie. Then in March 2024, Jace went on Bradley, Stephen Perry, and Jake Schultz's podcast, The Sit and Chat, and announced they'd be shooting in April that year.
I'm gonna do the Henry Danger movie in Vancouver. I'm filming it in March.
And then a bunch of photos got leaked before the trailer dropped, blah, 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 and we finally got to the movie that we have today. But enough yapping and introductions. Let's get into the movie. So the movie starts in a lab as we follow a device called the RAD, which stands for Reality Altering Device. It's rolled past a window that we see is being held up by a Kid Danger action figure. Now there were actually Kid Danger and Captain Man action figures made for the Danger and Thunder crossover episode, along with a Phoebe Thunderman figure. But the Kid Danger action figures we see Missy have aren't very similar. We then get the title card, which is the same font as the original series logo, except without the Danger swoosh logo. Like this one, right here. Totally didn't make it in MS Paint or anything. Another difference between this logo and the show's logo is that all of the letters are capitalized instead of the start of the words Henry and Danger. This choice could have been made because the movie has a much more serious tone, and having the logo be all caps would stand out more. We see these agents pushing the RAD to a secure room, and we get text in the bottom corner that says Swellview, USA. For those who don't know, Swellview was where Henry lived in the original series before moving to Dystopian in the finale. It's revealed that someone dressed up as Kid Danger was hiding inside the trolley, horrifying mask and all. Like, oh my god. This fake Kid Danger is chased down by guards who are saying things like, our Kid Danger impersonator is seen fighting all the guards off, but is then surrounded by them as the narrator comes in and says,
it all just kind of happened.
This is a reference to the original series' intro.
It all just kind of happened. It all just kind of happened. It all just kind of happened. It all just kind of happened.
Something that was referenced later in the series and ended up carrying into Danger Force.
Want to hear a really long story about how I found out Henry was Kid Danger?
No. It all just kind of happens.
It all just kind of happened?
But something you may not have caught about this narrator is that he's being played by Darren Norris, who you may know as the voice of Cosmo, Jorgen von Strangle, and Mr. Turner in The Fairly Odd Parents. The Kid Danger impersonator escapes with the RAD and takes off their mask and is revealed to be Missy Martin, a Kid Danger superfan, and she walks past the front of the building that says Evil Science Corp. This is a company first seen in season 4 episode titled Danger Things, when a bunch of kids in Swellview went missing and its owner, Bill Evil, says his scientists accidentally created a portal while trying to play God like any scientist.
Earlier today, we were playing God. As all scientists do, by the way, it's not just us. Sure. Fair enough.
Which is referenced below on the sign with the tagline, playing God with science since 1942. We see that Missy has photos of Kid Danger in her room. And by that, I mean she has photos of Henry Hart. How did she get these? We see her hooking up the RAD to a computer to bring Henry into her house, and she reaches for her celery soda, which is later what Henry uses to transform into one of his hero outfits. But we pan to Missy's conspiracy board, and oh my god, so many details. In fact, this whole room is littered with newspapers and everything referencing the original series. We see pinned photos of Henry, Jasper, and a photo of Schwoz with a question mark next to it. Although later in the Captain Starch reality, Missy says that she's never learnt of a Schwoz, which makes me wonder how she got this photo and never got a name. We also see that she has a photo of Junk and Stuff pinned and a news article from Swellview that announces a new sidekick for Captain Man. And speaking of news articles, we see a couple flash past. There's one where a child psychologist talks about the fact that Henry is just a kid, and the photo in this article was from the second episode of the first season of the show. We see another article that referenced the season 3 episode Space Invaders, the episode where Henry and Ray save the little bunny from space. We also see a reference to Mayor Willard in the top corner, which means he was the mayor for all of the seasons of the original series and all the seasons of Danger Force. Another article talks about the time that the Danger duo held the press conference outside outside Evil Science Corp, which would have happened off screen after the season 4 episode Danger Things, as the text in the article reads, Captain Man and his sidekick, Kid Danger, stood center stage at a press conference to speak about the alarming cluster of disappearing youth linked to the evil headquarters of the Evil Science Corporation, which is in direct relation to the plot of Danger Things. There's an article saying they thwarted a villain meeting at the Swellview Ironworks, and at first I thought this was a reference to the episode Danger and Thunder, but that meeting was under Lake Swellview. The next article references the episode Budget Cuts, as the title reads, Danger and Man join anti-monorail coalition.
You see, our new high-speed rail project is costing the taxpayers $10 billion.
What?
We're cutting your budget by 90%.
We then get a dramatic recreation of the series finale, such as Jasper learning to fight and speak Spanish while he sleeps, a power that returns in this movie, and we can tell that this is a flashback and not that he's still learning, because they're purposefully trying to obstruct his face, and the stand-in's hair is much similar to what we see in season 5, and in this movie we can see that he's now curling his hair again, because remember, in season 3 episode Love Muffin, it's revealed that Jasper's hair isn't actually naturally curly.
You thought my hair was naturally curly?
We also get possibly my favorite shot, which is a movie level budget recreation of Henry crashing the blimp into Mount Swellview. They even included the bird here that bounced off his force field in the show, which was a nice touch. We see another section of Missy's pinboard with a newspaper in the middle showing the aftermath of the cannon's radiation. We also see a post-it note on the top left that seems to read, Scraps behind dumpster, Henry's cape. This could be a reference to the episode Sister Twister Part 1, where Ray makes Henry blow a bubble to show off his cape, and it's revealed that Henry has a tiny cape that he promptly zaps off. So maybe it was thrown in a dumpster somewhere near junk and stuff and Missy went and collected it, or found it from someone else who found it. But we never see the cape, so this could just be a nothing burger that I'm just making up. And you wouldn't guess what we see next. More newspapers. The first news article we see has a quote as the title. This quote is from Henry, and Missy quotes it a couple more times throughout the movie.
A superhero always answers the call.
What? Who are you? Who talks like that?
It's later revealed by Henry that this line was in fact said in competition with Captain Man to see who could come up with the cheesiest post-fight interview line. But I found a really interesting detail on this poster that I haven't seen many people talk about yet. We can see the villains referenced here are Dr. Mignac, the Beekeeper, and the Time Jerker. We also see before Dr. Mignac that there's an ER. I am 100% certain that this is referencing The Toddler, and the episode that this article is talking about is Game of Phones. The plot of this episode is that a girl named Charper, who'd eventually become the superhero Volt in Danger Force, has campaigned for Captain Man to help her find her missing phone. This is picked up by the news, so Captain Man and Kid Danger are pressured and forced to help her. And at the end of the episode, they eventually fight the exact group of villains mentioned in the article. The reason I mention all of this is because I think a hero always answers the call was a purposefully cheesy wordplay from Henry in relation to Charper's missing phone. If so, that is awesome because it amplifies the cheesiness of the quote even more. We also see the title for an article regarding the Wall Dogs, the vandalizers Henry pretended to join and defeated in season 1 of the show. And finally, we see an article that talks about the events of the series finale where Kid Danger dies in the blimp accident. We're then transported to Dystopia. This is where Henry, Jasper, and Charlotte go in the final episode to fight crime. But the city looks very different here than it did in the finale, although it's very possible that this was just a different part of the city. Jasper is chatting up local dystopia detective, Detective Jones. Jasper yells at her that Henry's not dead, but he's just busy. Busy doing what, you may ask? Well, he's signing a deal with BizWatch, a fictional watch company. This is an endorsement deal for both Henry and Jasper as a crime-fighting duo, but Jasper wasn't called into the conference. But Jasper is then surprised visited by Henry's sister Piper as well as Schwartz. Piper says she's on spring break and came to surprise them and mentions that Charlotte has left for Harvard. It was stated in the finale that Charlotte was taking a gap year to fight crime in dystopia, so I wonder if Riel Downs planned this because she didn't want to return for whatever reason. But back to Piper saying she's on spring break. This could give another hint to when this movie takes place in the Dangerverse timeline. You see, in the Henry Danger finale, it said that Piper is going to Florida State University. So let's assume that she's going for 4 years. This episode was actually aired in March 2020, but while leaving his own funeral, Henry says to Ray,
See you at Thanksgiving?
so I actually believe that this episode probably took place sometime October, November 2019. And Piper says she's on spring break, which is usually around March, so I think this movie takes place around March of 2024 in the Dangerverse timeline. This also wouldn't conflict with Captain Man's cameo at the end of the movie. However, Schwartz does say,
"We came all the way from Swellview."
But in the last episode of Danger Force, he gets invited to live with a princess in a country who has about 15 seconds of screen time like 3 episodes prior, and it's literally her only appearance that she comes out of nowhere, and oh my god, this show might be bad. So Schwartz presumably got divorced, or as the Danger Force say, scammed.
Remember Daphne? The princess?
She scammed you.
Yeah, that was. Oh, right. Yeah, that's not real, man.
Even though we don't see her scamming him like once, literally the only time she's on screen is for 15 seconds in Bose's birthday party. But they said she's scamming you, so I assume that it was a scam off screen. While Henry is signing this endorsement deal for the two of them, Jasper is on lookout duty for a villain that's going to destroy a truck full of plutonium-239, since the city runs on nuclear power. This villain is Blackout, a villain we saw chasing Henry in the Danger Force episode Return of the Kid. This was Blackout's one-time appearance before the movie, and I do think it's actually really cool that they brought the one dystopian villain back for the movie. From that episode, we know that Blackout has the power to eat souls, and Henry did something to mess with him, so now he wants his. So Henry ran away to Swellview to hide in the man's nest from Blackout. But Blackout has a different appearance here than he does in Danger Force. Whereas in Danger Force, he has a dark visor and biker's helmet along with a retractable double-sided axe parodying Darth Maul's lightsaber. Here they've changed it to give him a much more serious Grim Reaper look, with a hood that feels very reminiscent of like Assassin's Creed to me. And they decided to change out his axe for claws. I assume he just gets down and dirty now, clawing the souls. Jasper suits up to stop Blackout, but instead of the 2 separate gums he has for sleeping and transforming, he now has a circular attachment for the back of his head. This causes a mask to form around his head and put him to sleep. Also, I love this suit up, it's so slick and well done. Alright, now for a translation of what Jasper says in Spanish, because when I watched this on Paramount Plus, it did not have subs. He turns to Piper and Schwartz and says, "Welcome to Dystopia, friends." Blackout arrives and Jasper immediately starts a fight, and when Blackout says, "Where's your boss?" referring to Henry, calling back to earlier when Piper said,
"I heard Henry's your boss."
We're partners.
Jasper says, "I don't have a boss," and yells, "Take that," while doing a Boondocks jump kick while yelling, "Eat my feet." I guess they wanted to remind us that this was a Dan Schneider property. Back on the street, a green light starts shining as everyone turns around and Jasper says, "It's about time." This is Henry, who has now learnt to use his force field as a mode of transport. He gives Blackout a beatdown. I mean, he already versed him in Danger Force, so he's played these games before. After greeting Piper and Schwartz, he breaks the fourth wall to advertise the deal he just signed for him and Jasper. This QR code actually takes you to the Nick.com website. Also, it's probably not intentional, but this whole watch promotion thing gives me really like Ryan Gosling Tag Heuer vibes. Henry also reveals that a part of the deal he just signed for him and Jasper, he has to say business every 45 seconds, which he once again does when he goes to check on Jasper. Henry asks how Jasper's feeling, to which he responds,
Firme way.
to which Henry responds, "Whoa, watch your language, there's kids around." And Jasper responds, "Way isn't a bad word." Way is a Mexican Spanish term that can mean different things based on context. Henry is probably interpreting it to mean dumbass or idiot, whereas Jasper is probably intending it to mean dude or man. These are all correct uses for the word. Jasper is confused after Henry once again promotes the watch, to which Henry once again states that he has to work business into basically every sentence. And Jasper says, "Good, because these hands are in the business of death," but Henry cuts in and says, "I think we have to say it in English." Although, Dystopia has its own language called Dystopian that we're yet to see. In the season 5 episode Beginning of the End, when Charlotte reveals she's taking a gap year there, Henry first asks,
Do you even speak dystopian?
so I wonder if this movie is retconning that fact and making it an English-speaking island. We get some shots of Missy starting up the rat and executing a program to bring Kid Danger into her world. Meanwhile, Blackout has woken back up and knocks over Henry, prompting Jasper to ask if he's alright. Henry asks Blackout to try again. Then he turns on his force field and launches Blackout all the way into the Bizwatch building, where we hear the iconic Wilhelm scream. Jasper takes off his sleep device and asks Henry how the signing went and how their ad looks. And as this is happening, a bus with the ad drives behind them. This could also be seen when Henry is breaking the fourth wall. And we can see the tagline is "Handle your business." It's revealed that Jasper has basically no focus in this ad. And the two get into a fight about how Jasper gets no credit for doing half of the work and leads Henry to revealing that he's moving out because he wants his own place. This place could be either the same or a different one from the base that's referenced in the final scene. Jasper Jasper asks if this means they're even partners in crime anymore, to which Henry just responds with a bit of a non-answer. I gotta say, this kind of feels like I'm watching a breakup scene. Henry is called to the Bizwatch building, but it's a trick by Blackout, who knocks him out the window telling him he shouldn't work alone. But luckily for Henry, at this moment, Missy has decided to power up the rad, and he teleports into her room. We see a couple pages of Missy's journal flash past, but we can't really see them that well, especially with the lighting that flashes past. But we do see a character that seems to resemble Petey Piranha from the Mario franchise, a character that we don't actually see in this film. We also see Henry in his new Kid Danger suit, designs for pants and pockets and all, and also some illustrations of Vampire. We also get a glimpse at Coach Craig, an original character possibly based on one of Missy's sports teachers that she didn't like that much. His description reads, Coach Craig, typical buff meatball gym coach. Always looking for a way to flex his muscles. Bullying young or old, doesn't matter. He probably sleeps with the light on, hugging his fluffy bunny at night, sucking on his thumb. But boy can he land a good sucker punch. We see another photo of Henry in his new Kid Danger outfit with a green Rick and Morty looking portal behind him. We also see the illustration for another dimension we do see in this movie called The Adventures of Maple Syrup Wars. We also see another illustration of Missy in her costume with a hero named Superfan, possibly being a reference to Superman. We see another Maple Wars page with the Canadian Mounties, a page with Captain Starch and a speech bubble saying, "He's so dreamy." We also see another page of what looks like Kid Danger and Missy chasing a car, but this character doesn't really look like Missy and she doesn't have a cape here, so I don't know. Also, I don't know why I thought it would be really funny to check Wattpad to see if any of the fanfics that were written on there were used in this movie. Don't do that. We get a wide shot of Missy's room where we seem to see the layout plans for Evil Science Corp. Before we get back to Henry falling out the window and through a portal, now in an altered reality in his new Kid Danger outfit and Missy's room. Now, I've seen some confusion online, so I should clarify. Some people are saying that Missy herself is from an altered dimension. This is not true. Missy is a real person that exists and lives in the same universe that we see in all 5 seasons of the show, excluding a couple ones with like Opposite Universe and Thernos boot. The reality around her does become altered. When she starts booting up the device, she is not in an altered reality. But when Henry falls through with the new costume, it is an altered reality of the town that she does live in. Even later it shimmers. Apparently this does exist in Swellview, but it is not the shimmers that exists in the real Swellview. I question how this thing works, because it's said to be a reality altering device, but what it seems to do is open up holes to different realities. So Missy is creating new universes by hooking it up to her fanfictions. Or maybe it does warp the world around them and just doing it this way was an easier way of visually representing it. Which is why it's confusing, because each time we see someone travel to a different reality in this movie, we see the people touching the device travel. But if this is truly a reality altering device, it would change everything around them. Kinda similar to the Reality Stone in Infinity War. We see Missy waking up Henry, who's passed out on her bedroom floor, as we hear him say,
Ray, she's my mom, I can't set you up.
This is a reference to Captain Man being a complete MILF hunter in the original series. Also, and this was only something I figured out while researching the video, Captain Man put a tracker into every single mum in Swellview. That's how committed this man is to MILF hunting. Henry sits up and we see a poster in the background of an animated Kid Danger inspiring healthy eating habits. This design could be from the Adventures of Kid Danger or the motion web comics. We see a class yearbook in the background. This includes Henry's class's photos, and I assume just like a bunch of random stock images. I'm not really seeing any like Oliver, Jasper, Charlotte, Bianca, like anyone you'd expect to be in this photo as well. Missy's little sister Gemma comes into the room, played by Glee's actual younger sister Breeze Dango. Meanwhile, Henry flips through Gemma's fanfic trying to figure out what's going on, and we see another page where she's fighting a dragon. Or at least I'm assuming it's her, because it's the same hero we saw flying to the car with Henry. We see a shot of Missy's bed with the red bubble Kid Danger sheets and pillows, as well as a couple posters above her head with one that reads the semiotics of the postmodern superhero. Semiotics is the study of symbols, and postmodernism basically means they're breaking the mold of a traditional superhero. Maybe this is a reference to some of the sketchy behavior they got up to in the series that wasn't very hero-like. Dangling the mayor out a window due to budget cuts. The episode where they started making people pay to save them and they put the girl back up in the tree. Like, these guys are far from heroes. Missy stops Henry from snooping around her room and starts grilling him, finding out that he faked his death. Henry tells Missy that he's been fighting crime in dystopia and reveals that it's in the Pacific Ocean. Missy asks if Jasper and Charlotte are also there with him fighting crime. And when Henry asks how she knows who they are, she reveals that she's figured out his secret identity. This shriek that Henry does is a callback to something he did very often in the original series. Something that's even called out by the rest of the cast in the episode Story Tank.
You get scared all the time. You do your tiny little shriek.
Yeah, it's like, no. It's more high pitched. It's like,
No, you gotta go even higher than that.
But if we reverse this clip for a second, we can see a board that has all of Captain Man and Kid Danger's mission times planned out on a pinboard and traced back to junk and stuff. This could mean Missy was referenced all the way back in season 5 of Henry Danger in Game of Thrones, when Sharper said,
"Someone on the internet plotted the locations of all of Captain Man's missions, divided them by the response time, and used doodle maps to determine that he must live somewhere near this store."
So it's entirely possible that this could have been Missy. We also see a newspaper that reads Kid Danger and Thunder Girl in a daring train top, and I can't exactly make out the last word, but this is obviously referencing Danger and Thunder, the Thunderman's crossover episode. Missy says she wants to fight crime with Henry, but Henry declines her offer and makes her send him back to dystopia. This is until a woman cries out for help from the street. This is a hilarious line, and it's probably a reference to the fact that fanfictions often don't have the best writing. Henry and Missy look out the window to see Coach Craig, as Missy picks up her book and explains how she was trying to bring Henry into her normal life, but this guy looks like one of her fanfiction characters. As she's flipping through the pages, we can see a gargoyle with some text that seems to read, "Moonlight drips through the shattered castle window. Count Vampire, with glistening embers against his pale skin. Gargoyle," he gasps with his voice with madness. I don't know, dude. This doesn't appear in the movie either. Maybe that one would have been like a Schwarz variant. I don't know, dude. Missy says he has to help because
A superhero always answers the call.
pulling down the newspaper from before, and we can see a couple more papers like Captain Man and Kid Danger prevent Minyak attack, which I really think could only be referencing like 4 episodes, because the spelling bee episode was really just done as childish beef, and we've already seen newspapers referencing Game of Thrones and Danger and Thunder. We also see a paper reading Trouble at Con. Big fight at Cactus Con, referencing the season 5 episode Cactus Con, when Jasper goes on a date with a girl that's allergic to air. We also see a headline that reads Public Fight in Swellview Park, which I believe are most likely to be referencing either Hour of Power or Henry Danger the Musical. The second headline is obstructed, but it clearly references mob boss Rob Moss from the season 5 episode Double O Danger. Missy finally annoys Henry into fighting Coach Craig, but just as Missy comes to help, he says he just got out of a crime fighting relationship, talking about his fight with Jasper, and says that he'll handle it alone, calling Coach Craig a roided out gym teacher. This isn't related to like any breakdown detail, I just thought it was really funny to see Henry say roided out. Henry starts getting his ass handed to him, and Missy says it could be because she believes they're trapped in one of her fan fictions. And one of the key details about that is that Missy didn't know about any of Henry's superpowers, so she never wrote them in. I think there's 2 missed opportunities here with bringing back Henry's hypermotility, because either you could have 1. Brought back Henry's hypermotility, or 2. You could have referenced back to the episode The Rock Box Dump, where people thought that Henry's hypermotility was actually a disease. Coach Craig drops Henry and asks him to do 20,000 push-ups, which continues well into the night and goes beyond 2,300 before Henry finally agrees to let Missy help. So she beats Craig over the head with the rad as she's trying to program it to send Henry back to dystopia. But as she's doing this, we finally see Vampire, who transforms into an electric swarm of bats and pops up behind Henry, but they hit the button and go to the next story. But Piper is seen picking up and holding a red crystal, and it's later revealed that this crystal helps the rad connect back to reality. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We find out that our heroes have been transported to Shimmers, which is revealed to be Frankini's nightclub in Swellview. But this is never mentioned in Henry Danger or Danger Force. There was a club that Frankini had in Henry Danger called Frankini Club, but that's just a base of operations that we see in Live and Dangerous and Henry Danger the Musical. So this is probably something that just happened off screen and was never mentioned. A curtain drop reveals Frankini. Frankie Grande has come back to reprise his role, being the only villain that was featured in the original Henry Danger series to carry over into this one. He's singing his new single made for this movie called Smile, that's available to stream now on Spotify and probably other places. The song is giving very Fairly Odd Parents, My Shiny Teeth and Me vibes. Henry asks why his sister was a vampire in the previous story, and Missy reveals that she made it out of frustration after Piper kicked her out of the Man Fans. The Man Fans was an official club from the original series, a club which Piper became the president of all the way back in season 1 of Henry Danger in an episode titled Spoiler Alert. Piper becomes the new president as declared by Captain Man, and Piper being president was mentioned throughout the whole show. The duo hear Piper whistling down a waiter, rude, and Henry wonders how she could be there if she's supposed to be visiting him in dystopia. So he snatches the rad and it's revealed that it's locked in story mode. Missy says she wrote this story because she feels bad that she's better than her sister at pretty much everything and her sister lives in her shadow. And she realized that Henry's friends might have felt the same. So in walks in Captain Starsh, who is the superhero persona of Jasper in this universe. This could be a reference to the season 5 episode Grand Theft Auto where Jasper comes back from vacation rocking a mustache. They even reuse the line,
"You simply mustache."
Well, if you mustache.
It's then revealed that he can fly, which Henry is jealous of and reveals that he tries to replicate it.
Why do you think I'm always jumping in from rooftops so the enemy thinks I can... You know what? I gotta get out of here.
Meaning that Henry actually can't fly. I don't know why at the beginning of the movie there was that green ball traveling up to the Bizwatch building if it wasn't actually Henry's force field. It's possible that he projected it and brought it towards him, which is like crazy effort to put in just so your villains think that you can fly. Henry tries to storm off, but is stopped by Piper, who asks why he's not smiling. While she's saying this, she isn't even smiling, but whatever. She calls Frankini over, who offers Henry a Frankini teeny and orders some tacos, saying Henry will feel so much better after eating it. It's never outright stated, in fact it's never mentioned again, but it seems to me from the subtext of this that this whole story is based around Frankini starting some sort of smiling cult. I mean, think about it. The song Smile, asking Henry why he isn't smiling, the glowing drink and the tacos magically making him feel so much better. It just seems like some sort of weird smiling seduction syndicate. Henry's smile drops when Jasper, aka Captain Starch, comes into frame. And I noticed that he actually has a mustache belt buckle, which is sick. Missy gives Piper and Captain Starch the recap of what's happened, sending Piper into an existential crisis. I mean, same thing would happen to me, like, what do you mean my entire life is a lie? Henry says that if they're in Swellview, then there must be a Schwoz, and he explains who he was to everyone there. It's revealed that in this universe, the man cave is actually called the Stash House, like a stash house. Missy says that there has to be a Schwoz somewhere in this universe, theorizing that the rad probably fills in what's not programmed with real life, since its purpose is to alter reality. But also, Missy said earlier that she never wrote Captain Man into any of her stories. So wouldn't Captain Man be one of the things that's filled into reality, along with Schwoz? It just doesn't make any sense. So they all call out Schwoz's name in unison.
Schwoz! Schwoz! Schwoz!
And this leads Henry to a back room where Schwoz is a plate scraper working for Frankini. And he's wearing the exact same fit from season 5's Cave the Date. And it is so out of place to see Michael D. Cohen using a different accent from the voice he does for Schwoz. It's revealed that this Schwoz was actually in jail for stealing plutonium to build a fuel-efficient nuclear reactor, but he was stopped by Captain Starsh and his sidekick. While Schwoz is taking a look at the rad, Coach Craig shows back up, as he was also written to this story. And here we see him using his one super powerful device, his supersonic whistle. And he spams this shit so hard, like bro, nerf Craig. So after Captain Star starts failing his fight with him, he calls out for his sidekick, that being Henry. So Missy hands Henry a can of celery soda to help him transform into his costume. This could be a reference to Popeye, who crushes a can of spinach to become super strong. Missy says, I figured you had a cool way to transform in real life. And Henry responds with,
Wow, that's actually pretty close to how we act.
Obviously talking about the bubble gum from the original show. So everyone eggs Henry on to chug the soda, and Henry says, which is a reference to the season 5 episode Whistling Susie, where the gang chants for Ray to eat the bombs.
I'll eat that bomb right now! But only if you chant a little louder!
So Henry chugs and slams the drink on the table. And this could be one of my favorite shots, with pre-chug Henry on one side of the can, and then we pan around to reveal his costume for Lord Lolly. Henry's hair here is very much reminiscent of 2015 Jace Norman in projects like Splitting Atom. Missy reveals he has a secret weapon, the Lolly Smacker, and seems to pull it out of nowhere, indicated by the sound made when she grabs it.
You can't forget about your secret weapon, the lolly smacker.
So it's possible that Lord Lolly actually has hammer space, a term created by anime and manga fans in the mid-1990s to explain how characters retrieve items from places where they wouldn't fit. Also referenced in Across the Spider-Verse.
He's got hammer space!
Henry eventually caves and goes to help a pinned down Captain Starch, who was about to have his mustache shaved off by Coach Craig, who's carrying a comedically industrial looking shaver, possibly made for just this purpose. But before Coach Craig can do this, Lord Lolly taps him on the shoulder with the lolly smacker.
I'm about to deck your face with boughs of lolly.
A reference to the Christmas song Deck the Halls. The original line is boughs of holly, which means cut off branches of a holly plant, which is a symbol of protection. Kind of like Henry protecting Jasper here. But in this case, Henry is just slapping him with a large lollipop, which breaks when he slaps him.
Just a regular lollipop.
Oh, I wrote this when I was 5.
Missy says she wrote the story when she was 5. But to write the story, she would have to know that Jasper is Henry's best friend. And with the timeline I've made, saying that she's 12 now would mean that she figured this out in 2017 in the show's 3rd season. So she figured out Henry's secret identity in preschool. I could barely count. What the fuck? Henry tries out his Miles Morales riz on Coach Craig.
Hi.
And gets thrown across the room where we see his stunt double with completely different hair. And thus begins my favourite fight scene in this movie just on music choice alone. The song playing in this scene is Candy, made by the Bouncing Souls. It's a rendition of I Want Candy, originally released in 1965 by the band The Strangeloves. While Henry is getting his ass handed to him, Captain Starch comes in, kicks him onto a rolling table, and kicks him out the club where we once again hear the iconic Wilhelm scream. Henry storms off after hearing he has to chug more celery soda to go back into his normal clothing, and Missy follows him to give him a gold star. She says she started doing it after he got tired of living in Jasper's shadow in this universe. And it's also a callback to the beginning of the movie when Henry told Jasper,
"What do you want, a gold star?"
Schwarz enters the scene saying he finally figured out the problem, and reveals that they have to get back the crystal from Newtown Dimension, the same crystal that Van Piper picked up before. But while this conversation is happening, Frankini busts into the room and says that there will be no hiding during his next performance. This leads to Frankini getting touchy and taking him along with Henry and Missy to the next dimension, which is animated, with Henry and Missy once again being Kid Danger and Superfan, and Frankini being a countercorn, in a very quick scene set to the song Up, Up and Away by the 5th Dimension, although this is actually the 4th dimension we see in the movie. Missy also mentions that this was written after she had dental surgery and she was yet to recover from the medicine, which explains the floating teeth in the background. Also, Frankini has purple little heart spots as his coat pattern, which I thought was just a really cute detail. Missy hits the button and sends her, Henry, and Frankini back into Newtown. According to the rules of the device, this is our Frankini now in personality, but not actually in person. Although Shimmer's Frankini wasn't actually very different from the real Frankini anyway. According to the rules of the device and what we learn a little bit later, if they took Van Piper into the Shimmer story, she'd probably act like the Piper we see in the original series. Which kind of removes all stakes from the final battle, but if you take the final battle as truth, then it just means that the rules of the device contradict themselves. And he, along with Henry, tell Missy to push the button. However, Missy explains that the device chooses one of her stories at random. They could end up in any one of them. And this leads to my favorite joke in the whole movie.
I wrote another about an awful place called the Gray Zone. You'd hate it.
Honey, I was born in...
No, she said the gray zone.
This is a reference to Frankini and Frankie Grande's sexuality IRL. We then get what could be tied for favorite line in this movie back to back when Frankie calls Missy Missy.
Listen here, Missy.
Wait, how do you know her name?
I don't know her name. I was being condescending and disrespectful.
Frankini runs off, Henry and Missy hide as Van Piper comes into frame, and Frankini comes back in and goes, "Slay, Van Pop that pussy girl." Something like that. And then he gets bit and turned into a vampire. Frankie Grande has actually expressed his interest in creature work and said he was thrilled to actually be able to explore that route a bit with Fankini, as he called him.
I want to be a creature actor so badly. That's actually what I like. I want to be like, Smeagol, like, why does it grow, Smeagol?
Kid Danger and Superfan get ripped out of the camper and they once again hit the button. They're transported to a Mad Max style story called the Syrup Wars. A rock comes flying over and Henry is pushed out of the way by Wastelander Jasper.
Mother Goose!
The term Mother Goose originates from France. She's a character that originated in fictional kids' story tales as an imaginary author for some of the stories. This could be intentionally referencing Missy as a sort of a Mother Goose in this situation, as she and Henry travel through her fictional stories. Jasper informs Henry that the Mounties are back. Mounties is a Canadian term used for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, basically what the police who ride horseback are called in Canada. But since it's the apocalypse, the Mounties are just riding 3 dudes. The leader in the middle is played by Davin Tong, who some of you may remember from old school YouTube channel Peter Chow. He tells them to walk away and leave their liquid gold behind, to which the Mountie on the right says s'il vous plaît, meaning please in French, a line that the left Mountie repeats in English. This liquid gold they're referring to is the last bit of maple syrup on Earth. The gang holds the last bit of maple syrup and they're waiting for the big guy to come pick them up and transport them with all the syrup along to California. It does seem like a line was cut out where Missy says something like, "We can't do that," and Henry asks why. I'm going to show you where I think they cut something. You let me know in the comments what you think.
Let's just give him the syrup, and we can find Schwaz. He can fix the rad, and we can get back to reality.
Because in this story, we're waiting for the big guy to come with the truck that can haul the syrup to California.
Kinda seems like someone just messed up editing and they cut out a line or two. Missy also says that after they transported the syrup to California, they'll eat flapjacks for a week before the Earth crashes into the sun. Keep that in mind for later. Henry ends up catching this Jasper up to speed on the story this far, and Henry decides to help Jasper fight the Mounties for the syrup, which Missy says she already has a plan for. Missy lets the Mounties in for the syrup, with the French one saying, so they dismount their human steeds and get sneak attacked by Henry and Jasper, who are hiding in the ground. And thus begins a series of nutshot takedowns set to Hit Me With Your Best Shot by Pat Benatar. When Jasper does a double takedown of the two Mounties, one mutters something that's not actually captioned in the subtitles. So I asked on my Instagram, link in description, if anyone knew what it meant, but no one responded. Also, thank you to some friends of friends who gathered that the last word could have been mes poutine, which translates to my poutine, although this is just a French loaded fries dish. It's possibly said this because it sounds like putain, which could mean fuck or whore, but my guess is that it's just a bunch of gibberish in his language that didn't make sense to English audiences. For a close comparison to the loaded fries thing, it's kind of like if I was in a Bollywood film, got hit in the nuts and started yelling, "Oh, chicken palmy" or something. Missy shoots the Mounties with syrup while yelling distraction technique. After the fight, Jasper and Henry get to talking, and Henry tells Missy that she's actually using the term wrong.
Distraction technique is when you make the bad guys think that they're getting what they want, but really, you're getting what you want.
The big guy finally shows up and it turns out that it's Schwaz, using some type of Cockney slang with an accent that I don't even know where to begin translating. But I did my best to translate what I think this means. And I also had some help from this photo that was posted on Michael D. Cohen's Instagram, where some of it was already translated for me.
Your squeaky cleaner's in the pink. Whatever butcher's here. Some sticky fingers skeeved off with the crown jewels. Neodymium. Coals and cokes in its hoary mode is in the tower.
Definite article? Odds and ends?
Z-brovs. Fishnets.
Leather.
Originally, there was actually an extra line in the script where after Jasper says leather, translating to that's tough, Schwaz would have said city lights, translating to you said it. But after this, Jasper basically explains for me, explaining that the device isn't actually broken and it's just stuck in story mode because someone stole the neodymium crystal. That person being Vampire, who stole it all the way back at the beginning and is now wearing it as a necklace. Missy blames herself for this, calling her stories stupid and saying that this whole thing is her fault. Henry says that her stories aren't stupid, to which Missy rebuttals the animated one is, and Henry nods in agreement. This could be a reference to poor reviews that the Henry Danger animated series The Adventures of Kid Danger got. Henry asks Schwaz if he can fix the device if he were to get the crystal back, and we get a little bit more Cockney slang.
You lot nicked the pig from the stick. These hands make pots and pans, and Bob's your uncle. A new day's a dawning.
These hands make pots and pans may be a reference to the full phrase, if its and ends were pots and pans, there'd be no work for a tinkerer's hands. It's possible that Schwaz has the tinkerer's hands, especially because at the beginning of the movie he said this. And the phrase basically means if people only explore hypotheticals and make excuses for things, then nothing would ever get done. This kind of makes me think of the fact that these stories we're explaining are all hypotheticals, and Henry is using it to repair his relationship with Jasper in the real world, even though nothing's actually getting done there. Because once again, any progress he makes in his relationship with Jasper here is completely fictional, and Henry actually has to go back to the real world to do something about it. Henry says the plan is to take all four of them to Newtown and fight Vampire so they can fix the rad and get back to reality. But they have to do this all without getting bit by Vampire, because she could fix the router and use it to go and attack the real world. But first, they go through the animated dimension where Jasper actually looks closer to what he did in season 1 with like his orange curly hair, and they pop back into Newtown where Schwartz and Jasper are now adjusted more to reality. So Michael D. Cohen is back to using his regular Schwartz voice, and Jasper is now dressed normally. This is what I was talking about before, where people get adjusted more to reality, meaning that wouldn't Vampire just go into the body of like the Shimmer's Piper? Like, she'd be acting more like Piper. Jasper finally sees Henry in his new Kid Danger outfit.
I haven't seen that in a while. Looks good. Feels good.
This is a reference to the original series and Henry's catchphrase.
Feels good.
The door opens to our villain trio that the gang has to fight. So they try to lure Missy in by capturing her sister Gemma, but Henry holds Missy back, saying it's what they want. So Schwartz runs off and starts tinkering while Missy sneaks inside while Henry and Jasper are fighting. But since Missy has snuck inside, Henry goes to help her, so now Jasper is soloing Coach Craig and Frankini. But notice how Jasper isn't asleep or blindfolded while he was meant to be adjusted to reality, which could suggest that Jasper can now fight in the real world. Missy gets slammed by Vampire, so Henry goes up to face her, and look, there's real photos of Glee Dango's family up in the background. This is something done a lot on TV shows. They usually dress the set with childhood photos of the actual actors. But if there's two siblings on the show, they'll have like separate baby photos of them both, but not any of where they're together. But here is different because they're actually siblings. Henry redirects Piper's electricity into the lamp and it seems to power him up. I believe this actually unlocks a new level of power for Henry that he actually seems to carry into the real world, but we'll get to that later. Henry is then smashed through an unbelievable amount of walls. I'd say this is an error, but we have no proof that she doesn't have that many walls. Henry even calls it out.
A lot of walls, Missy!
This really could just be a case of lamp shading, a writing technique where writers try and call attention to a problem by saying, hey, we recognize we're doing it, so it's fine.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
Outside, Coach Craig is still abusing the whistle power like it's Kirby's down B in Smash, until he gets mogged by Schwartz, who just made earplugs. Kinda funny how easy this dude could just get packed by like some sound-sensitive autistic person who was already wearing headphones. After Piper finally finishes taking Henry through like minimum 10 walls, Missy comes and tackles her, getting bitten in the process, but also stealing back the crystal. She then says distraction technique, calling back to before when Henry corrected her on the definition. So Henry runs outside and chucks Schwartz the crystal and he gets to fixing while Henry and Jasper prepare to 2v4 the villains. Here we see Jasper kind of copy the Henry Cavill move of reloading his fists. Piper calls in her army of vampires and we see a couple of carried over from Missy's drawing in the syrup walls like the construction workers and mailman. Schwartz resets the rad just in time to send everyone home. And we see Henry fall into the dystopian river, Missy go back into her room, and Frankini go back into his club. But we're never shown Jasper and Schwartz go back into the Syrup Wars universe. Do you remember what I told you to remember before? Don't worry, I'll replay it.
We'll eat flapjacks with syrup for a week before the earth crashes into the sun.
So yeah, these two kind of like helped them send them back to their universe where they're guaranteed to die in like a week. I guess Missy can write a whole new ending and it can be like, oh, you can write your own story. You know, that can be the moral of the story. But that doesn't happen. They just never brought up again, so they dead. Henry chucks his broken Bizwatch into the ocean, and he realizes he still has the gold star that Missy gave him, meaning that this was actually an object from the real world that Missy already had on her. Henry ends up meeting with Jasper at a diner and hands him the gold star, once again calling back to the beginning of the movie when he asked,
"What do you want, a gold star?"
Also, ew, I know that is soggy as hell. Henry says he isn't needed in Dystopia anymore because Jasper is there. But before he can leave, Blackout comes back and Henry and Jasper tag team him and defeat him with the power of friendship, or like men in their 20s yaoi or whatever. Jasper asks in Spanish,
"Está muerto?"
To which Blackout says, ironically, I'm about to black out. I mean, this guy's more of like a creature than a human. I don't really know how you'd like kill him because he's kind of like a shadow monster. Detective Jones once again asks Jasper for a photo, but this time with him. And Piper and Schwartz finally ask to go see a show. Jasper turns them down and Henry just kind of shakes his head and walks off with like no explanation to him. I feel like this would have been a great chance to show growth. Like, why didn't he go to a show with them? The poor guys have been getting blown off the whole movie. We then cut to Missy, writing Henry through his old Kid Danger email, when she gets approached by two muggers. Girl, you know how dangerous this town is. You literally talked about how much crime it is infested with. You should know better than this. Henry fly kicks the two muggers to the ground with his force field, and we also see him clearly fall down in this shot. but then in the next shot, he's standing up and handing it to her. She asks if Henry and Jasper are friends again, and Jasper comes around to greet her, now wearing Henry's jacket. Honestly, I think it's so cute when couples wear each other's clothes. Schwartz also comes in and asks if they want to see the new hideout, which I'm assuming Nickelodeon is purposely withholding from us so they can see how well the movie does and then decide if they want to show us or not. And it's revealed that Henry can now use his force field to fly. I believe he gained this power when he absorbed the shot from Vampiper. So the story ends with our heroes flying off into the distance. We get another pinboard shot with sticky notes like, March 3rd, tunnel found under warehouses 67 to 55, which could be referencing the tubes that connect back to the man cave. Because as we found out in Sister Twister Part 1, the man cave tubes go all over town. We also see the full post-it note confirming what I said was right about Henry's cape. I believe this one says signs of things to monitor. Another post-it note says June 14th from 8 PM to 11:15 PM. We see some security footage of someone getting mugged, and then we see Henry post up a second live-action Kid Danger and Superfan image. I don't know when either of these two photos would have been taken in canon, because they're clearly like behind the scenes promotional images. Like, did Missy also just have this costume actually ready and fit to Henry's proportions already or some shit? We then cut to our final scene. Henry and Missy break into a warehouse, and Missy mentions that she has a trigonometry exam tomorrow. To which Henry responds, well, you wanted to be a sidekick. Henry has a new jacket here that's sort of a red, closer to the one we see in Danger Force. They walk in on a man obstructed by fog, fighting some flying laser squid things. But this man isn't just any man. It's Captain Man. And he packs his blaster before asking Henry for help and us cutting to black. There's a few things here to take note of. Ray's hair is significantly longer with some stubble, but the most damning part, which you can see even more clearly in behind the scenes photos, is that Ray has a scar. So how is Captain Man scarred when he's meant to be indestructible? I'm sure we'll find out in either a movie sequel or a sequel series, but there's also a small problem with the fact that Ray retired in Danger Force. In the final episode of Danger Force, he retired, so what happened? But I assume that we'll figure that out in any possible sequel we may get. In fact, even supporting this video you're watching right now could show that there's still a fan base for Henry Danger content. So make sure to comment, share, like, and subscribe, all that great stuff to show that you love the video. This has been my breakdown of the Henry Danger movie. I love doing this so much. I loved researching it. I love sharing it with you guys. Once again, let me know what you thought in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later.